You're listening to Space in Between, the podcast for things that are too real for your group chat, too messy for a work meeting, and way too honest for LinkedIn. I'm Vesna, and no, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to say the stuff you've probably thought before, but you didn't say out loud because you didn't want to be that person, the one who kills the vibe, who makes things uncomfortable. And this is where we get honest, a little messy, and maybe even laugh about it. Last week, we talked about microaggressions, those small, subtle comments people make with a smile on their face. The just joking comments that actually suck. The compliments that sound off, but you can't quite put your finger on why. I never planned to be in psychoeducation. I kind of fell into it. Mindfulness, coaching. But behind a calm voice, I was walking on eggshells. There was a rule book. Yeah, no thanks. I ask questions. I live in the gray zones. This is space in between. No fluff, no filters. Welcome. You're in the right place. This week, we are going deeper. Let's talk about unconscious bias, the behind the scenes script that shapes how we see people before we even realize it. The reason those microaggressions keep popping up in different forms, but always with the same weird energy. You've heard it before. Well, I didn't expect someone with tattoos to be so professional. Wow, I forget you're gay sometimes. Wait, you're the boss? Wow, you park so well. I mean, for a woman. They're said with a smile, like you should be flattered, like you've just won a prize for not fitting into someone's stereotype. But what they're really saying is, you surprised me. I didn't expect much from you. And that's where the discomfort begins. Not because it's loud, but because it's subtle, polite, and you're not supposed to call it out. Unconscious bias isn't about being a bad person. It's about being a person raised in a world that quietly taught you who is smart, who is safe, who is normal, and who isn't. You didn't invent these things, but you did absorb them. We all did. It's the stuff that runs in the background of your brain, the snap judgment that shows up before your better self catches up. And most of the time, you don't even notice it because it sounds familiar, comfortable, like something you've always believed without ever asking why. That moment when you automatically picture a doctor as a man in a white coat with a deep voice and serious face. Assume someone with a Roman background is an uneducated or poor. Assume the cleaning lady does not understand English or Excel. Quietly judge a man for being a kindergarten teacher. Are shocked when someone introduces their husband or wife and it's the same gender. It's not always loud. It doesn't have to be hateful, but it is powerful because it shapes how we see people before they even open their mouths. These biases live deep in us because we've been swimming in it since birth through books, ads, cartoons, movies, teachers, parents, churches, kafanas, governments. It's the unspoken message that shaped us before we even knew we were listening. And yeah, I know this might sound like we're still talking about microaggressions like in the last episode, but think of it this way. Microaggressions are the symptoms. Unconscious bias is the root cause. It's the quick assumption, the judgment that shows up before you've even realized you're up thinking it. The stuff we've all picked up over time just by growing up in a world full of stereotypes and shortcuts. So, yes, they are connected. Microaggressions are what you see, those comments or behaviors that land wrong. Unconscious bias is what's underneath, the belief that shaped them in the first place. And here's where it gets messy. When someone points out a bias, hey, that wasn't okay. Our first instinct is often defense. But I didn't mean it like that. That's not awareness. That's ego trying to protect the good person image. We are so attached to being seen as kind, inclusive, progressive, that we defend our intentions instead of owning our impact. But here's the truth: you can be kind and still biased, spiritual, educated, self aware, and still biased. Not because you're bad, but because you're human. Ever checked your bag when a Roma person sat next to you? Assumed the cleaning lady had no education? Thought someone from the village couldn't possibly be well read? Rolled your eyes at someone from the West for being cold, while secretly thinking they're probably run things better? Yeah, that. I used to think I was above it. I traveled to foreign countries. I lived abroad. I married someone from another culture. I read the books. I did the work. I worked on myself. And then the quiet judgments started showing up about what's normal, what's rude, what's respect, especially around the West. I thought they were cold, distant, but efficient. And we were warm, messy, too emotional. I thought we were completely different until I realized we're not. Same needs, same fears, just different packaging. What I believed were truths were just biases I never questioned. Unconscious bias does not scream, it whispers. It feels normal. And that's the problem. Your brain takes shortcuts, not to harm, but to move fast. It sorts people out into safe or unsafe, normal or different, based on things you've seen, heard, absorbed, without even realizing it. It's like your brain says, oh, I've seen this type before. Here is how to respond, even when it's wrong. And those shortcuts, they're built on stereotypes fed to us by family, media, school, culture. We didn't choose them, but we still carry them. So the question isn't, do I have a bias? It is, what is my bias doing to someone else? Who gets dismissed, mistrusted, or shut out because my brain is still running on old code? So, how do we begin to shift? First, we stop seeing feedback as personal attack. Being told you've shown bias doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you absorbed the same messages we all did about power, identity, beauty, value. And now you have a chance to unlearn them. Second, we stop choosing comfort over consciousness. Because, yes, realizing you've made assumptions, that you've been part of the problem, it hurts. But that discomfort, that's not failure. That's the beginning of growth. That's the space where something more honest can start, if we let it. And third, we learn to notice the quiet stuff. Because bias doesn't always show up in loud, obvious ways. Sometimes it whispers in who we interrupt, who we listen to, who we instinctively trust. Not out of hate, but out of habit. And those quiet moments, that's where the real impact happens. That's the space in between who we think we are and how others experience us. And that space, that's where the work begins. Still think you don't have bias? Okay, let's test that for a second. Comes to mind when you hear the word leader. Who do you picture as a criminal? Who do you trust instinctively? Who makes you feel a little uneasy and why? Bias isn't always about hatred. Sometimes it's about comfort zones. Or like believing the stories the world has been feeding you your whole life without ever stopping to ask who wrote them. So, no, you don't have to beat yourself up, but you do have to do the work. Start with curiosity, ask better questions, catch the story before it becomes a sentence. And when someone calls you in, when they say, hey, that landed weird, don't rush to defend your innocence. Try saying, thanks for telling me. I didn't realize that. Or even, can you help me understand what I missed? It's not weakness, it's maturity. And honestly, it's a relief because the goal isn't to be flawless, it's to be flexible, to be real, to keep learning. And speaking of learning, next week, we're talking about something that shows up in all kinds of spaces, especially online. Weaponized therapy language. How phrases like, I'm setting a boundary, you're being toxic, or this is my truth, can become shields for avoidance, manipulation, or even control. When self help becomes self defense, what gets lost? And before you go, ask yourself, what's one assumption you've made recently without even realizing it? If this episode resonated with you or made you pause, share it, sit with it, talk about it. And remember, it's not about being right, it's about being real. See you next time in the space between I didn't mean it and I'm learning. Stay uncomfortable.